Hey, Andy, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, Andy.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
And we are really excited to have you here because you are here to share an incredible story of debt elimination and debt freedom. And we know that our audience can't wait to hear how you were able to make that happen. But before we do that, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody that's tuned into the show right now and let them know what you are all about?
Sounds good. My name is Andy Hill. I am a husband of 7 years, a father with a 5-year-old little girl and a 3-year-old little boy. And life's pretty exciting in my life right now, being a father and a busy guy. And part of being busy is I host a podcast called Marriage, Kids, and Money. Obviously fits in well with our conversations today and what you guys have got going on in your world. And been doing that for about a year and blogging as well at the same site, marriagekidsandmoney.com.
Love it. Awesome. So let's talk about the debt that you were in. What type of debt was it, and how much of it did you have, and how long did it take you to pay it all off?
Sounds good. Yeah. My wife and I got together in 2010. And when we got together, we both carried a little bit of debt into that marriage. So I had about $27,000 in student loan debt that I had accumulated from my MBA program. I had just assumed that if you go back and get your MBA, they automatically give you more money. So I just had to, go and get the MBA, right? So, following what you're supposed to do. And additionally, I had leased an Audi A4 at the time too, because, when you're making whatever, $40,000 a year, you need a luxury car. I think you just, So absolutely. And then my wife also, she was student loan debt free, which helped a lot. But she had also had an affiliation or affinity to driving an Audi as well. So she had about $21,000 on a car loan there. So all told, before we said I do, or right around the time we said I do, we had about $48,000 of debt together.
Nice. Now, but none of the things that you listed are technically out of the norm. A couple of cars, some student loans, that's typical for most Americans. But for some reason or another, once you all got married and came together, something clicked where you felt and your wife felt that although this is the typical way that most people are living, most people have debt in their lives of this fashion, this is not something that we want in our lives moving forward. Talk to us, help us understand what got you all to that point. How did you all come to that conclusion?
Yeah, so we got together, we got married, and we were having a great life together, double income, no kids, living it up, having a good time. Like you said, not a lot of credit card or no credit card debt or anything like that, but we had built up some debt, about $48,000, and we started thinking about more than ourselves. We started about thinking about, well, we're probably gonna want to have a family soon, and we started thinking that maybe we want to just make sure we are as financially set as we thought. Double income, we think we're rich, right? She's making good money, I'm making good money. We thought we were rich, but we really started to look into it as we were planning for our future and planning for our family. So we started diving into some books and listening to some radio shows and watching some TV shows. One of the TV shows we liked to watch around that time was the Susie Orman Show. And she had a segment called, I think it was called How Am I Doing? Where people write in or they call in and they give all the information about how they're doing. And then Susie gives them a pass-fail grade on how they're doing with their lives. And one of the terms that stood out to us in that segment was net worth. And we said, net worth. I wonder what ours is. Surely we have a high net worth because we're making so much money. So we looked into that, did the little math problem, and found out that we weren't rich. We had about a negative $50,000 net worth. So our debt didn't help, but also we didn't have very many assets to help either. So we weren't really investing in our retirement very well, and we had kind of underwater on our mortgage. So all these things started to come to fruition, and we said, wow, we're really not in the best position that we should be, especially for thinking about having kids and trying to, make some positive impact on our future. So it was that at that point that we decided that we needed to make a change.
And how long did it take you guys to pay off this?
So at that point, it was it was around 4 or 5 months after we got married. So maybe like the September timeframe, fall timeframe of 2010. And once we said, hey, let's clean this up, we're making good money. We can do this. It took us about 12 months. So we worked pretty hard and got it all done.
Worked really, really hard. So talk about the mindset that you both had to put yourself in order to say, you know what, let's just stay focused. I know that we probably want to do some things, but we want to pay off this debt.
Yeah, I think it was a mindset of, just focusing and trying to educate ourselves as much as possible so we could get it cleaned up as quick as possible. We became very intentional about our spending. We met every month at the beginning of the month for what we dubbed the budget party, where we would get together, look at our numbers from the previous month, and then plan our numbers for the next month. The party aspect came from me. I was trying to convince my wife to, have a party with me once a month to look at our budget, eat some pizza, have some wine, have some fun with it. And she was nice enough to come to that party every month, and I really appreciated that. And we still do it 7 years later. So.
Now talk about that aspect because you all realized that you all weren't in the best position possible and you all decided to do something about your finances. Was it like total serenity, or were you all able to connect instantly and see eye to eye and this is how we're going to do it? We're going to set this budget and we're going to knock this debt out. Or did one of you all kind of see the light sooner than the other and then had to get the other on board? Because there are a lot of people listening right now that are married that would love to get the ball moving in regards to getting out of debt, getting their finances in order, but their spouse doesn't really see that things are as bad as the other does. So talk about that dynamic and how you all were able to kind of get on the same page.
Yeah, I think that maybe I had a little bit more excitement about it. Sometimes I get carried away with things. I'll read something and I'll say, we need to do that full force. And my wife understood where we needed to go, but maybe she wasn't as excited about it as I am. Like she doesn't also host a podcast about money. We'll just say that. So the early conversation wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. We had a lot of disagreements in the beginning, but as we came together to understand where we wanted to go, the common ground was meeting every month and having that budget get together and understanding the spending and debt payoff plans as the month began. And that was sort of our level set for the month. We can agree on it. And then throughout the month, we didn't really have to discuss or argue or bicker about what money was going to be spent or utilized because we already made that plan at the beginning of the month. So that sort of helped. But yeah, I mean, it's not always sunshine and rainbows for sure. There was definitely some mistakes I made through the process. I got into a fella named Dave Ramsey, pretty hardcore, read a lot of that stuff. And I said, well, if he says that's pretty much the Bible. I gotta do it verbatim, sweetheart. So we had credit cards at the time. And part of his philosophy is to have no credit cards. And that's okay. That works for some people. And for us at the time, I thought we had enough responsibility, to have the credit cards. But according to the book, I learned that they were evil. So I subtly convinced my wife, through some conversations, repeated conversations, that maybe we should just take a break from credit cards and just see how that goes. And she's a sweetheart, and she allowed that craziness to happen. And what we found 5 years later, after we had no credit cards, is that our spending didn't really change all that much. We had the discipline. We'd been meeting on the budgets each month. So we went back to them after not having them for 5 years. And that was sort of just like a learning process and thing, that was my bad. But my wife's very patient with me in my learning process. And it's a lot of trial and error. But yeah, no, I guess overall, it's challenging, but you have to figure out what works best for you. And you'll do that through education and trial and error, in my opinion.
So it sounds like you are the more prone to studying this stuff and figuring out strategies, and you got a little overzealous, right? So looking back, if there's somebody who is who's in your position, who eats this stuff up, and they're trying to figure out how to get their spouse on board, you said it was a mistake to kind of shove it down your wife's throat. What would you have done differently if you could?
Yeah, another good example of that, to your point, is the way I approached her in the beginning. I read those books and I said, hey, I think after reading this book, we should sell your car right away and drive a beater around. And that's not the best way to approach your spouse in this situation. You need to speak to them. And obviously, I got crickets from that too. You need to speak to them in terms of things that make them happy. How would it feel, sweetheart, if we were able to take a vacation each year without the guilt of paying it off, years and years afterward? How would it feel if we were able to fully fund our kids' college funds so they don't have to ever worry about paying for school? How would it feel if we had enough money to be financially independent where at least you don't have to go to work anymore and you can stay at home and take care of the kids? These are more convincing arguments than saying, hey, I want you to lose something. I want to take away your luxury car, sweetheart. What do you think about that? So it's just more speaking in terms of things that push towards their dreams and goals as well. So yeah, you got to think of it from that perspective.
So now you guys were able to pay off this $48,000 worth of debt in like 12 months, which is amazing. So I know our audience is, wanting to know, well, how did you do that? So practically speaking, what were some of the strategies or some of the things that you guys did in order to knock it out so quickly?
Absolutely. And, it's not always that easy for a lot of people. And I will say that we had a double income at the time, no kids, and we were able to essentially live on my salary and use hers to pay off the debt. So I made about $70,000 at the time, and she made about $60,000. So essentially we could live on mine, use hers to pay it off. But if you're used to living on 130, you live on 130, right? So, it was a big change. It might not sound like that was really tough, but you have to change that mindset in order to live on it and intentionally spend that way. So we had the advantage of that. I will say that. The other thing that we did, I mentioned that we get together on those, the budget get-togethers each month. That was actually really, really helpful, to come together, not only review our spending each month and then make plans for the future, but also talk about our dreams. Why are we doing this? Why are we paying off the $48,000 debt? What is that going to do for us in the future that will allow us to have the lives that we want? And with that motivation, that monthly sort of, rah-rah session, it got us kind of fired up. And then lastly, there's lots of different methods to paying off debt. There's the snowball, there's the avalanche. We like to use the debt hatred method. I hated my student loan so much. I didn't even care what interest rate they were versus the car. I'm like, I wanted to get rid of those first. It did have a higher interest rate than the car, but we sort of just wanted to go for the one we hated the most. And so we, each month we would have an automatic payment that would go at that student loan until that was completely paid off. We would keep that same intensity and use that same dollar amount that we were paying on the student loans and then throw that now at the car. And in September of 2011, we had one more payment to make, about $3,000 on the car, and we were set to go. So we use those three strategies. Working together with your spouse. If you've got a double income, take advantage of that. Meet monthly on a budget, and then choose a method that works for you to pay off the debt as fast as possible.
You said a word that's offensive to most people. You said it multiple times, right? You keep saying the word budget, okay? And that offends a lot of people.
Cash flow planning is more sexy, right?
Right. So from your perspective, how imperative was it for you and your wife to learn jointly, together, collectively, on how to create and stick to a budget successfully? How important was that for you all to achieve the ultimate goal of becoming debt-free?
Honestly, I think it's one of the most important things. It does so many things. It forces you to learn about finances. It forces you to take a real hard look at your spending, because if you're not doing a budget, or if you're just spending just how you spend, it's out of control. I mean, you can't actually predict where you're going to be each month. There's no intentionality. There's no plan. So it really helped us to focus. And I loved the aspect of that's where we came together as a couple and planned for the future. Just dreaming together and thinking about where we wanted to be each month was fun. And that brought some, good times into it. So yeah, I think it's one of the most important things. And we still do it today. We did it in year one of our marriage. It's November 1st today. After I'm done talking to you guys, we're gonna go do it. We're very excited about where it's led us.
And I want to talk a little bit more about another strategy that you mentioned that you all use, which was you all used one income to live on and the other to get out of debt. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into that right after this commercial break.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
So Andy, right before we went to break, you were talking about some of the strategies that you and your wife used to get out of $48,000 of debt in 12 months, which is insane. One of the things that you all did was you all made the conscious decision that you all were no longer going to live on two incomes, although you both had two incomes, and that you all were going to live on just one. In theory, that sounds like, yeah, super easy. Let's just stop using yours and just use mine. But in reality, that is tough. I don't care what your two incomes are. If you both make 25, if you both make 250 a year, to just all of a sudden put the brakes on and say, listen, we are going to just live on part of the income that we've been living on is no easy feat. Number one, after you got past the theory, the idea of it, and actually started to walk it out and live on part of the income that you all were living on, what was the toughest part about doing that? And if somebody is listening who maybe they can't slash in half or go as drastic as you did, what would be your advice to them on how they can apply this strategy to their own situation?
That's a great question. I think in the beginning for us, it was very difficult to just jump right into it and say, this is what we're doing, because we had gotten used to a lifestyle that we liked and it was fun. So some of the things that we had to do that were a little tough in the beginning were saying no a lot more than we used to. Coming into our marriage, we were in our 20s. We like to go out to the bar. We like to go to concerts. We like to go to nice dinners because we're young and single and we're trying to find the one that we want to be with. And, they're out there, right? They're at the bar. You got to go to the bar. So, so we had to say no a lot more to some of our friends that, weren't quite married yet or weren't going down the path that we were interested in with regard to paying off debt. But once we told our friends, our family, what we were doing, they were understanding and they were supportive, and that's okay. I think some people are maybe worried about offending family or offending friends, thinking that they're going to lose them forever. I think if there's a period of time in your life where you're going to say, hey, for the next 2 years or the next, 3 months or 12 months, we're going to do some pretty crazy stuff. And it's going to require us not to be able to go out to dinner with you guys or go on this vacation. But if you could stick with us, we're your friend, we're your family, and just support us in the long run. You'd be surprised if they're real close family and friends, they're going to be supporting you and patting you on the back. So I think some people are just afraid of changing their lifestyle and it affecting, their everyday life.
So true. So were there any obstacles along the way while you guys were on this debt payoff journey? Did you all hit any bumps in the road, or maybe you had to pause for a minute, or something happened, you had to handle something? Were there any obstacles that you guys had to overcome throughout this process?
I think generally both my wife and I sometimes have cases of the I wantsies. For me, I'm a very much about experiences. I love going to concerts. I love going on trips if I can with my family. For my wife, she loves home decor. She loves to make the house look beautiful. Home goods is her main spot. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and she also likes clothing. So I mean, some of these things, it was difficult for us in the beginning to say, we're going to hit that number right away in month one. And it didn't happen in month one or month two, really. I mean, it just takes a couple months for you to get used to it. And, some conversations on both sides, hey, Andy, we really can't go to that concert again because, we got some goals to hit, and same thing on her side. Maybe we can't decorate as much in our house right now. So some of those conversations had to happen in the beginning, and yeah, there were little bumps in the road, but as we kept on looking and making sure that we wanted to hit that goal of being debt free before our first daughter was born, that kept on hitting in our mind. We were thinking, hey, we want to have kids and we want to be debt free before they even come. So that was always our North Star to help us keep moving forward.
So was that the way that you all stayed motivated throughout this journey? Because a lot of people get the idea to get out of debt. A lot of people get the idea of, I need to make better choices with my finances, and they're motivated at the beginning, but as time goes on, they lose motivation a little bit, or they lose motivation altogether, and then they just kind of revert back to their old ways. How were you all able to stay motivated throughout this journey and not return back to your old ways, or not give in to the temptations of buying this and buying that, or going here and going there and getting off track?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of that. We were very excited about becoming debt-free, consumer debt-free before our daughter came into the world. We found out that my wife was pregnant in the summer of 2011, and that just sort of motivated us even more to keep pushing forward and have that happen before we had our first child. Also, it was just an opportunity, to charge down this road. We started to get kind of excited about it. Every month we would meet, we'd start to see those numbers, and it's like, oh, this can happen. $50,000 doesn't look so big anymore now that it's $20,000. So it started to look, this can actually happen. So we got motivated. It just became a really cool thing that Nicole and I would partner on together, and each month it became a new, exciting get together when we saw where the numbers were. So, family opportunities to become debt free before our child was born, but also just a great way for my wife and I to partner and have fun.
Yeah. So what type of impact did this have on your marriage? I'm assuming that it brought you guys closer, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, the act of doing the budget is maybe the business side of things, but then the dreaming together and thinking about where you want to go, that brings you a lot closer with your spouse. And that happened for us too. And the fact that we did it early on in our marriage was pretty huge for us. I think, we got on this track in year 1, year 2 of our marriage, and it's kind of set the tone for where we want to be in our lives. Sometimes she's got to calm me down because I get a little excited, like the stuff I talked about earlier in the interview. But we're good yin and yang, man. She helps me to be fun and live a little and enjoy life, and then I ruin her home decorating. So things like that.
I love it. So paint the picture for everybody who wants to achieve what you achieved. Take us to that day, that glorious day where you made that very last debt payment. Set the scene and tell us, how did that go?
Sounds good. Yeah, we were nearly done with the car loan. We had about $3,177.16, just about, left on the car loan, and you have to contact Audi Financial Services when you want to make that payoff. So we reached out to them and said, hey, we want to make this complete. They send you an official document that says this is what you owe and how much you have to to pay and where to send it. My wife and I sat down at our kitchen table. We looked at that document. We had enough money saved up based on our diligent get-togethers that we were able to just write a check and send it off to them. And we celebrated. We had a good time. She was 4 months pregnant, so we didn't pop any champagne or anything like that. But what we did do is we got in her Audi and we took a drive. And this drive was a little different than all the other drives before that because this car was completely paid for, and we were headed off into the sunset per se in a new life. So we were very, very happy with that day.
Awesome. Now, speaking of that new life, am I correct in that you all began to attack the mortgage after that?
That is right. Yes. So that intensity didn't subside. We wanted to focus on other areas of our life too, focus on retirement planning and, starting a 529 when our daughter came into the world, right, on day one. So we were very excited about that. But then, yes, we continued to battle debt like it was a, nasty stank in our house, and we wanted to get rid of it completely. So we are, as of today, we are 1 month away from paying off the mortgage on our $400,000 house, and we're just so excited about life right now to be completely debt free.
How long did that take?
So we got our house in December of 2013. We got a 15-year mortgage, and it was a $200,000 loan at that point. And we said, okay, I'm good with upgrading the house, move it, because we got 2 kids at this point. We want to get a little bigger house. Okay, fine. But what can we do to pay this thing off in crazy amount of time? What can we do to pay it off in 5 years? And we just made a plan at that point to put extra payments towards the mortgage every month. I would get paid 26 times a year instead of the typical 24. So we just pretended we only got paid 24 times a year. We'd take those 2 extra paychecks, throw those at the mortgage. If I ever had any, good year where I'd get a bonus at work, or we had some crazy Craigslisting happening, that would all go towards the mortgage. So we just kind of got crazy with it a little bit, but enough where we still were able to live our lives and enjoy it. When you've got 2 tiny kids, there's not a lot of time for travel anyway, or going to the bar anymore, or going to fancy dinners. So we took advantage of this time before our kids even turned, 5. Our daughter's 5 now, heading to kindergarten. And we just got pretty intentional with it. And now, we're a month away from making it happen.
It's amazing. So depending on what time of the year that you guys may be listening to this show, they will be completely mortgage-free December of 2017. That's amazing. Amazing. That's amazing. So was one of the concepts, are you guys still living off one income, or is your wife now at home with the kids?
Yeah, at one point, I was lucky enough to get a new job, and at that point, Nicole, when our second child was born, she had gone part-time, and then when our second child was born, we, modified our budget again and said, hey, what can we do to have Nicole be able to stay at home? She liked her career enough, but not enough to, stick around and not be home with the kids. She was more excited about being a mom and being home with the kids than she was about her career. So we modified things a little differently in our budget to make it work. And yeah, she's been at home with Calvin and Zoe for the past 3 years now. And yeah, we've been able to make it work. So life's good.
That is amazing. I absolutely love that. Congrats to you guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're very excited.
So after the mortgage is paid off, what's the next goal that you guys have? Because you're going to be completely debt free all the way.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself, right? No. So, a big thing that families are doing or could consider doing is increasing their passive income, doing what we can to look into real estate investment. We're thinking about next year making our first, single family home, buy and hold rental property, and starting to build our passive income. Becoming financially independent is the next goal for this Hill family. And it's going to take a little while, but we're learning a ton and having a lot of fun doing it. So that's what our next goal is in life.
I think it's an awesome goal. Looking back over your whole journey to debt freedom, what do you think was or has been the biggest lesson about life in general that you have learned?
I think if you apply focused effort and intentionality, I think anything can be done. I mean, big, long running distances, losing a bunch of weight, paying off debt. I really believe that if you put intentionality and focus, really anything can be accomplished. So that was a big thing for me, because originally when we saw that number of $50,000 or our mortgage loan of $200,000, thinking about that ever being at zero just seems crazy. But if you've got a plan and you automate it and you make it easy, it takes some time and patience, but it can happen. Anything can happen.
So true, so true. So are there any book recommendations that you can recommend to our audience? It doesn't have to necessarily be just financial related, but any books that have helped you along this journey that you would like to share?
Yeah. I would say for debt payoff, I still really love Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. I think that's a great place for people to start if they're looking to battle debt. I mean, he's the debt monster. He hates it. So it's a great book if you want to battle the debt. I think for just breaking down the complexities of money, because sometimes people think that becoming a millionaire really means something when it really doesn't. I really like Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. And then lastly, on the investing side, I had a good time reading Money Master Your Game by Tony Robbins, a good sort of open book.
Textbook.
Yeah. What is it? 600, 700 pages. Knock you out. But it'll help you with, learning the details of passive investing and index funds and the benefits of that too. So yeah, some books there that have helped me out a lot in the financial side.
Yeah, 3 for 3. Read all 3 of those, and I second all 3 of those recommendations. So, Andy, if there's somebody listening who love to hear how you were able to get out of debt and think it's great, but when they look in the mirror and they look at their numbers, they're not sure if they have what it takes to become debt-free like you and your wife have done, what words of encouragement would you give to that person if you could talk to them one-on-one? Yeah,
I would say with the right tools, the right motivation, the right resources, I think anything can be done. So read a good book that is from people who've done this, that give you the plan to do it. Listen to a great podcast that's motivating, like His and Her Money. Check it out. It gets you excited. You're working with people that share your similar values too. If you're married and you're trying to figure things out, listening to a podcast like this is very motivating because you can see yourself being like, I'm just like those guys. I could do that. So, connecting with resources like that, Facebook groups, there's a ton of Facebook groups where people are going through same challenges, and it's a great way to, share your victories, learn about other people's victories. There are people out there doing this, making a change. They're not millionaires. They're just regular everyday people trying to make a difference in their families' lives and their families' future. So get out there, get motivated, and learn from a lot of people. It's exciting.
Absolutely. You know what? Speaking of great podcasts, tell everybody about your podcast, your website, and how they can connect with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on your show. My podcast is Marriage, Kids, and Money. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and check me out at my website, marriagekidsandmoney.com, where I am connecting with incredible people like yourselves, as well as some motivating folks that are really, exciting people about where they are with their families and where they're going with the future of their money. It's a great time right now in personal finance, and I know you guys all about that too.
Absolutely. Andy, this has been super incredible and inspiring, and we're super glad that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule to share your story with our audience today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.